we're learning chapter 12. And it's time to get started. So we started this actually. Yes. Chapter 12. We started this. We got through some of it. I'm trying to remember where we got to right now. And this is after we've dealt with, we know what a tzaddik is. We know what a complete tzaddik is. We know what a rasha is. We know what a complete rasha is. And now we got to find out. Oh, hi. Wow. Long time you haven't come. It's good to see you here.
Hi, girl.
Welcome back.
Thank you. Sorry.
We even printed this just for you. So we know what, yeah. And now we find the guy in between, which is the rest of us. And everybody gets concerned. Oh, maybe I'm not a Beinoni. Maybe I'm a rasha. But we learned at the very beginning of Tanya, they're not supposed to consider yourself a rasha, right? But to be a Beinoni, like he says at the beginning here, a Beinoni is somebody who never sins. Not he never sins, but he never will, and he never has. Which we explained means that if he did such a great teshuvah, that he's not the same person anymore. So he, as he is now, and Clay was explaining this very well last week, he, as he is now, is not a person who ever sinned or ever. So for people are going to say, well, then I'm a rasha, I'm not a Beinoni. But we are told at the beginning of Tanya, you're not supposed to consider yourself to be a rasha. Not allowed to. What do I do? So, and it's an important question. So because he says not only you're not supposed to consider yourself a rasha, but if you would consider yourself a rasha, you could chas v'shalom become depressed, which is even worse than being a rasha. You know that?
Yeah.
Being depressed is even worse than being a rasha. Why? Because a rasha could be just sitting there being a rasha, but if he's depressed, he's falling down. Depression is a form of decay. It's erotic.
You don't get a depressed Beinoni.
You
don't get a depressed Beinoni.
No, can't be.
No?
No. Well, he might, feelings of depression, but he's going to say, no, I'm not going to think those thoughts that are making me depressed. I'm going to think good thoughts, and he'll overcome it. But a person can't be depressed and a Beinoni.
Can a Beinoni have a clinical depression?
Yeah, I guess we're not talking about people in extreme states. As soon as you start talking about the outliers on either end, you can't make any general principles. So we're talking general people. We're not talking about pathologies. Just normal pathologies like the rest of us have. Everybody has some pathology. But the point is that depression is pulling a person down. So not only would be a rasha, but by thinking that I am a rasha, that's even worse. I'm falling down, decaying. So if a person did something and knows it's something I shouldn't have done, so he should do tshuva. But he should never say, I'm stuck in this position. This is who I am. I was made to be a rasha. I'm never going to get out of it. I'm stuck. This is who I am. You should know that really every person is capable of being a Beinoni. And that's who that would be my healthiest state of being. And if I did something wrong in the past, I regret it. And now I'm trying to be a Beinoni. So you always have to be like the wannabe Beinoni, maybe, and even a wannabe tzaddik. And if you feel you didn't get there, so keep trying to, but don't give up on it. To consider yourself a rasha means that's who I am. I'm stuck with that. Never consider that. Then you're not really a rasha. You're a wannabe Beinoni. It's not a real rasha. It says later on, there's a person who really is a rasha because he can't get out of it. an addict, and he's stuck in his addiction. And then there's a person who, even though he may have the addiction, he's not stuck in it. He's getting out of there, or he got out of there. So that's a state of being. So really, we are all, our essential state of being is a Beinoni. And deeper inside us, who are we? We're tzaddikim, because the neshama is a tzaddik. And we're going to find it's just that this tzaddik inside you. And Clay, you made it. We're talking about you.
So was the gentleman out front. Now, what did he do?
But he let you in. He let you in.
After extensive questioning,
Interrogation. Well, doesn't it make you feel safer when you're inside?
well, as long as it makes everybody else feel
That's why these other people turn up on here, because they don't have to go through interrogation at the
go
gate.
through the security questions.
You can't get through. These are the people who couldn't get through security.
And then they have to go back.
That's fine.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Okay.
Sorry for being tardy.
Okay, so let's go back over this. So what we said on the first page is that the Beinoni has been able to conquer the levushin, the clothing of the soul, but not the inner self, not his emotions. Right? So he's got his actions are the right actions. He says the right things, doesn't say the wrong things. And when it comes to thought, well, thoughts, emotions just come up to your thoughts. That's what emotions do. Emotions are like a pot of soup, and the bubbles are coming up. The bubbles come up, and we call them thoughts. They really don't have to do with thinking, usually. Most of our thoughts really don't have to do much with thinking, but we call them thoughts anyways. So they're bubbling up. They're just bubbling up. This idea, this, and you ask somebody, write them down. They'll see it makes no sense whatsoever. But we think we give them a lot of consideration. The Beinoni is getting all these emotions are popping all these bubbles up there, and he says, "I don't want to think that thought. I have this thought to think. Why should I be thinking that?" Right? So he doesn't think. They come to him, but he dismisses them and he chooses what he wants to think. And that's the point I was making last week, is that that's the vital, crucial element that everybody believes is impossible, to decide what it is I want to think. Call it, in Hebrew there's a term for it, hesech hadat. It's often translated as remove your mind from it, ignore it, but that's not what I mean. Hesech hadat means I'm going to move my mind from here to here. Instead of thinking this, I'm going to think about this. Now, there's an implication there. The implication is that you have something else to think about. Yes, you always have to have something else to think about, ready at all times, and we'll get to that more at the end of the chapter. But this person is at this state, but he doesn't have the core, the essence of the divine soul. In other words, he hasn't conquered the small city. He hasn't won the battle, but he's not losing any battles. Right? So he's dominating in the war, but he hasn't taken over. The tzaddik has won the war. The tzaddik has arrived. He's there. He's got the country. He owns it. There's no more war. The Beinoni is at war. And day to day, it's getting a bigger and bigger battle. But he keeps on winning. That's all. He keeps on winning. He gets every ship that tries to get through the blockade. He gets it. Okay, so I guess that's a good example, actually. The enemy is sending these ships, and you make it a blockade, and you say, no, this ship can't come through. This ship can't come through. I'm not letting them. Okay, and I'm winning on the blockade. Okay. Then he says, this was at the bottom of the page, we'll go over it again, that there are times when the Beinoni does win, actually winning the war, but it's only a temporary win. And that's at the time of tefillah and saying Shema. And at that point, his Yetzer Tov, his neshama is taken over the heart, taken over the mind. That's what he's filled with. And there's no Yetzer Hara at that point. It's not there. But then, as soon as it's over, he's back to this whole world again, right? He sits down for his. I was going to say bacon and eggs. No. He sits down. He sits down for his omelet, and he starts thinking, and somebody gets him upset, and who knows? Okay, so all the emotions come back. The whole Yetzer Hara comes back again, and he says, "I thought I killed you." He says, No. I heard you were going to daven, so I said, good, wake me up when it's over. Now it's over. Food, let's get the business back again. So it's back again. So like your Yetzer Hara is not interested in davening. So he says, wake me up when it's over. I know I can't. When it tries, it'll try. Don't daven. Don't do that. No. But once it sees you serious about it, forget it. I'll wait this one out. Like the Yetzer Hara says, this is not the hill I want to die on. I'll try something else. Okay. I'll go away. And knows it's safer. It goes to sleep, it'll be safe. Because if you'll get it involved, if you get that your beast involved in your davening, it might become a little more divine, a little more God. So no. Just leave me out of the whole thing. It says, leave me out of the whole thing. Don't get me involved. And then wakes up afterwards. Okay, we cover that. We're not going to go over that again. So let's go down to, on the next page, but after prayer, see in the middle of the page, but after prayer, tefillah. I don't like the word prayer. We use this word prayer in English, but prayer has nothing to do with tefillah. You know why prayer has nothing to do with tefillah? How do you say prayer to pray in Hebrew? Is really levakesh, bakasha, which means to make a request. Or you can say techina, like his petitions. But that's not what tefillah is. Tefillah is a connection. For example, the word is used by Leah when she has a child, and now she has more children than any of the other wives are going to have. So she names her child Naphtali. Naphtali is related to the word tefillah. The niftalti, she says, I became bonded with my husband. Or you have another example of when you have some pottery and that smashes. There's a Japanese art of taking broken dishes and things, and they stick it back together with like gold, so on, or whatever. And it's an art form. They consider when it's broken and put together, that's an art form. It looks better than the original. I don't know why, but they think so. So when you have a earthenware jug or something and it falls apart and you tofel it back together, stick it back together. So tefillah is that. Tefillah is a bonding. A communion would be a better word, except communion sounds very Roman Catholic, so we don't use communion. But that's what it is it's a time of bonding. So let's use the word tefillah instead of prayer. So after tefillah, when this expansive consciousness of the infinite departs, there's a certain time of day when you can tune in to this expansive consciousness. And that's the first 3 hours of the day. And after that, it's harder to tune into it, which that's the time of tefillah. So when that's over, the bad reawakens in the left chamber, craving all its cravings for the cravings of this world and its pleasures. But because it does not have governing status in the city, right? There's a war going on over this city, right? Neither side has governing status. Well, but the Nefesh Elokis, the divine soul, has veto power. Put it that way. Okay, so it doesn't have that governing status. Everything everything has to get rubber stamped by the Yetzer Tov, but the Yetzer Hara has lost its rubber stamp. That's its main tool, is its rubber stamp, right? That's what makes a person as a Rasha, that the Yetzer Hara is a rubber stamp. That's it. Now the rubber stamp is in the hand of the Yetzer Tov. So he doesn't run the city, but he's got the rubber stamp, and the Yetzer Hara does not. So the Yetzer Hara doesn't have governing status, doesn't have a rubber stamp. So it cannot actually manifest its craving to bring from potential to actual. It can't get that craving out openly to be actually invested within the person in real action, speech, and thought. It can't get this being to take his mind deeply into the pleasures of this world to consider satisfying these cravings of his heart. So it can crave, but it can't distract you and pull you into that. So you feel a craving there, or an anger there, or a frustration, or there's an emotion there, but you're not letting it out.
So if he lets it out, does he become a Rasha?
If he says,
If he acts
I'm going to consider this, I don't. But if he has a moment to decide, should I take this or not take this? You have trying circumstances where you're ready to blow up at somebody, right? But you're not supposed to do that. Anger is very, very, very destructive.
You do that, that sinking down.
So you have a moment where you have a chance to just I got to get myself out of here. You got to take that moment and do that. So that's what the Beinoni does. He doesn't he's constantly fighting that battle, and he has his strategies down. He knows where he can go and where he can't go. And he keeps on vetoing. But any one time he could lose. It's always precarious. Okay, so why is it that the Yetzer Hara can't get the Beinoni into this? He can't draw him in. Why can't he draw him in? That's because the mind rules over the heart. It's written in the Zohar, Parshas Pinchas. It does so innately by nature of its design. This is a crucial statement throughout Tanya. It'll be repeated over and over again. That it's not something you have to develop. It's the way you are naturally. The natural state of the human being is the mind rules over the heart. Maybe not when you're a child, but once you reach an age of majority, your mind rules over the heart. This is how a human being is created to be from birth. Every human being is capable, by virtue of the resolve within his brain, to restrain himself and govern the craving spirit in his heart. So, see, he's not responsible to stop craving. Not responsible. Don't be angry. I'm angry. Don't be frustrated. I don't have to think about it. I don't have to talk about it. I don't have to do anything about it. Like the Mishnah says, that the best thing for anger is to be quiet. School, kas, shisika. So,
That's the best thing for lots of things.
lots of things. Lo matzasi l'guf tov mishisika. There's nothing better for the physical body than just be quiet. Most of the time, It says in Koheles that there's a time for speaking, there's time to be quiet. Then later it says there's a time to be quiet, a time for speaking. Most people that's because most people get it mixed up. The time for speaking they think is the time to be quiet, and the time to be quiet they think is the time for speaking. The things that have to be said, they don't want to say. Oh, that's too difficult a conversation. We can't get into that. So since you didn't get into that difficult conversation, the time when you should have kept your mouth shut, that's when you blow up. Okay, that's what most people do. Not all of us. So, so this is the part. You do not need to satisfy. This is on page 3, top of page 3. You do not need to satisfy the demands of your heart. Just because your heart says we must do this doesn't mean we must do this. It's such a simple thing, but people don't believe it. So people have to. You don't. So I said the but I have to repeat it. So the author Rebbe, the author, says elsewhere, he says, what do you do when your Yetzer is burning like a fire inside? It's burning. So what do you do? So he said, you imagine you're standing in the middle of a ring of fire. And you have to get out. What would you do? He said, well, you would step out of it because it's only your imagination.
We're talking about this. Yeah.
So you have to know. But my heart is burning. What? It's you. Your heart is you. So how could you be stopping you? So your brain is capable of overriding the heart and saying, no, even though I feel like this, I'm not. I'm doing this. Or I'm not doing it. You don't have, just because the heart says I must, doesn't mean you must. You're capable of switching over your mind completely from your heart's craving to the polar opposite, especially to thoughts that belong to the realm of wholeness. As it's written, King Solomon says, I have seen that there is an advantage to wisdom over foolishness as the advantage of light over darkness. What's the advantage? Why is it telling you this? It's saying that wisdom is better than foolishness, as it's an advantage over it, just like light over darkness. Well, everybody knows that wisdom is better than foolishness, right? Wisdom is light and foolishness is darkness, right? Wisdom means there's some wisdom there, and all foolishness is an absence of wisdom. Light means there's light there, and darkness is an absence of light. So what are you telling me by telling me that the advantage is like the advantage of, yeah, it's the same thing. So this is what? No. Because what's the advantage light has over darkness is that as soon as you bring light, the darkness is gone. The light doesn't have to fight, doesn't have to struggle, doesn't have to assert itself, just has to be there, and the darkness is gone. That's all. And so the same thing with wisdom is the mind, and the foolishness is the heart. And the mind has an advantage over emotions of the heart, like light has over darkness. That the mind doesn't have to fight with the heart. It doesn't have to discipline the heart. It doesn't have to demand from the heart. It just has to shine. Say, no, we're not doing that. That's all. On the contrary, if you fight with your heart, you've already surrendered. You're coming down to its level. You're participating. You're assigning status to it. So you don't fight with it. In other words, you don't say, oh, that's a terrible thought. I shouldn't be thinking that thought. You already reacted then. Or saying, oh, I'm getting angry. I better not get angry. No, you don't. You just say, we're not doing that. And do something else. That's all. Now, I know what people are thinking is that you're thinking in Freudian terms that if I suppress all these emotions and deny them and so on, they're going to bubble up and bubble, and they're going to come out in my dreams and haunt me, and I'm going to have some pathology. Who knows, okay? So, nobody was thinking that? Okay. Maybe nobody. I shouldn't accuse people. Maybe one of these people in black boxes on the screen might have been thinking, okay, I don't know. Okay. So, it is true if a person practices denial. There's a difference between suppressing thoughts or denying them. Denial is very dangerous. Denial means I don't think those thoughts, I don't have those feelings. No, you have to say, I do have those feelings, but I'm controlling them, and I'll deal with them. And if there is a real issue here to deal with, I'll deal with it at the proper time. But now is not the proper time. It's like you have a receptionist. Your brain has a receptionist, and when an emotion comes knocking on the door, the receptionist says, what is the issue? Okay, we have a time for that at 10 p.m. tomorrow evening. Would you like to come back then? Yeah. Okay, that's it. But you don't deny that I have these feelings. Okay, maybe I have to go talk to somebody. Maybe I have to go for a walk, something. I have to deal with it. But right now, no, right? Now is not the time. It's like everybody knows when somebody does something that gets you upset, is not the time to call them on the phone. Mm-hmm. You're supposed to wait a little. If you write a furious email, now is not the time to hit the send button. Wait till tomorrow before you hit the send button.
Yeah.
The emotions are burning. Don't just control yourself. So this is what it means. Light has such an advantage over darkness, such rule and dominance, that a little physical light pushes off a large amount of darkness. And it's pushed off automatically and spontaneously. The same with all these cravings that arise from the massive foolishness of the klippa and the sitrach in the left chamber of the heart. Right? Because like the saying of the rabbis, nobody can sin unless first infected by a foolish mood. Right? The only reason a person would do something wrong is this foolishness took over, which we often call passion, anger, frustration, all those words. But it's stupid. And your brain is smart. So they also spontaneously disperse all on their own when confronted by the wisdom of the divine soul, resides in the brain and wishes to be the sole ruler of the city. Ruling the city, it implies investing herself with all her three layers of interface within the entire person, as described above, with the thought, speech, and action of the 613 mitzvahs of the Torah. So that's her thought. Then something else comes up, says, no, I'm going to think about some Torah that I learned. I'm going to think some good thoughts. I'm going to think about something that has to get done. I'm not going to think that. And change your mind over to those thoughts instead. Something I was going to say, but I forgot. Maybe it'll come up later. Oh, yeah, I saw the other day, I shared the difference between a person who is run by emotions or a person who's run by the mind is like the difference between a carrot and a rabbit, between a vegetable and a living being. Mm-hmm. Why? Because imagine you're holding a carrot in your hand. Right? It feels, it's a stick. Okay? But I know if I plant it in the ground, it's going to grow. So it has life in it. In what way does it have life? It has life in the way it responds to its environment and makes more of itself. Is it a living being? Well, compare that to you holding a rabbit in the other hand. You feel you're holding life. There's something here that's struggling to get away. Its heart is throbbing, it's warm. It has a body, but it's not its body, it's a living being. So the carrot is a body that has life to it. The rabbit is life embodied. It's very different. It's all alive. It's not just alive in the sense of how it reacts to its environment. It's alive in that it's the agent deciding what it's going to do. That's true life. I'm going to go here, I'm going to go there, from within. So the same thing, a person who just reacts to his environment. That's what emotions are. Emotions are reacting to other people. He said this, I say back that. Yeah. He's going to be mean to me, I'm going to be mean to him. Oh, this I like. That's emotions. You're reacting to your environment. Well, who are you? You're not there. There's no you there. It's just your reactions to that's entirely exterior. Whereas a person who's run by his intellect is looking and thinking, what do I want from this situation? What does this person need? Why are we here? What is supposed to come of this? So you don't react to the situation, you conduct the situation, you control the situation, you become in charge. And that means all of you is alive from the interior outward. So that's the difference between emotions are reactive and the mind is proactive. Okay, so back to here. This is where, nevertheless, such a person cannot be called a tzaddik at all. So Beinoni is in a completely different world than the tzaddik. Two different worlds. Oh, just a minute. He has the light, this light, and he can just shine the light anytime, and the darkness is gone. So if he has light that makes the darkness dissipate just like that, why is he not a tzaddik? What's going on? So he has to explain. That's because this advantage the light of the divine soul has over the darkness and foolishness of the klippa, that it is dismissed spontaneously, goes only so as far as the dominion of her 3 layers of clothing. At the level of her essence and core versus the essence and core of the klippa, things are entirely different. So this light shines, but it only shines in the clothing of the soul. It doesn't get to shine into the emotions. The light never gets there. So there's a difference in the kind of soul that a person has. One person has a soul which is capable of shining all the way into the heart. Another person has a soul that can only shine into the clothing of the soul.
So Bainani has got no time when Bainani is
The Bainani to become a tzaddik has to get the soul of a tzaddik in him.
but can it be at this time tzaddik and next time?
So he said at the time of his tefillah is a tzaddik, but it's not really a tzaddik because if it doesn't last, it's not real. That he managed to get his animal to go to sleep for a little while. The tzaddik is not asleep. It's not asleep. He basically killed it. It's a big difference.
Okay.
The difference between something that's asleep and something that's turned off. Right.
So Bainani, that becomes, for that moment in Russia, there is a movement between one and the other.
The Bainani is visiting the world of the tzaddik once in a while, but he can't stay there. He's visiting it at the time of tefillah, but he's a visitor. He's a tourist. It's at the time of tefillah, and then he's back again. So he covers his eyes. He says Shema. There's nothing else but God, and he feels he's there. Uncovers his eyes. It's the same old world.
But he could be a Russia.
To be a Rasha, if he's becomes a Rasha, he has to do tshuva.
Yeah.
And a big, and to really be a Bainani, he has to be a complete tshuva. So, but this is these gradations are not like just a nice flat spectrum. You to go from Russia to Bainani, you leave one world, go through a door, come into another, and shut the door. To go from Bainani to tzaddik, you have to leave that world, and to go from an incomplete tzaddik to a complete tzaddik is again an entirely different world. It's like going from a vegetable to an animal, or an animal to a human being. It's a completely different world each time. So that's why there are 5 divisions. They're like completely different worlds one from the other. So even though the Bainani is like, he's sort of like looking through the window at the time of tefillah, but he's not really there. And the proof is that it doesn't say there. And the reason is because, the light was shining. The light was shining, so all his thoughts were there. All his words were there. He felt he was there. But the light didn't really penetrate the heart to change anything. You know what that means? It means his instincts don't change. The instincts stay the same. The tzaddik changed human instinct. He doesn't have the instincts of other people. So the rest of us can't change our instincts. So when the Bainani has concluded his inspired state of tefillah, the essence and core of the animal soul of Klippa in the left chamber has not budged in the slightest from its place. The fiery coals of love no longer burn openly in the right chamber of his heart. That's even in the right, never mind the left. Right? All that remains in the right side are glowing coals of hidden love. The innate love of the divine soul, as we explained that. So at the time of tefillah, in the right side of his heart, that's over here, the coals were burning. The left side of his heart was just asleep. Now, after tefillah, the right side's no longer burning, but there's something still like glowing in there. Like you finished the barbecue, but the coals are still glowing. That's the state. And that's what saves him the rest of the day. That's why he's able to continue being a Beinoni the rest of the day, because he's got those glowing coals, which means at any point something comes up and go, and the coals will start burning a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Coals, I need you. Okay. So since it's no longer burns, that allows for the foolishness of this bad fool to reemerge into the open and left side, right, the left chamber of his heart, where there was sleeping the whole time. Now things have calmed down in the next room. We can start partying again in here, craving all that it craves of the physical things of its world, whether permissible or forbidden. Heaven forbid. Chas v'shalom. As though this experience of prayer never at all happened. So the right side's calmed down, left side starts having a party again, like nothing happened. It's just that when it comes to something forbidden, it wouldn't arise in his mind to actually do this forbidden thing, chas v'shalom. What could happen is that some fleeting thoughts of forbidden acts, which in some ways can be worse than the acts themselves, might manage to rise up to his brain and disturb him from Torah and Tefillah, Veda, serving Hashem. As the rabbi said, there are 3 sins. Oh, this is interesting. There are 3 sins that no person is saved from every day. So not really sins. Fleeting thoughts of sins. Loss of focus in prayer. And he does mention the 3rd thing, but the 3rd thing is the dust of Lashon Hara.
The what?
The dust of Lashon Hara. Means you didn't really say something bad about something, but it could end up being interpreted that way. Something that, and they say every day, happens to people. Certain things, no person is saved. You're going to have a thought. So if somebody has thoughts of sins, that's not a big gewalt. It's perfectly normal. We have instincts, we have hormones. That's the way we are. Right? You can't blame a person for having lustful thoughts or angry thoughts or whatever they are. And a person shouldn't blame himself. That's called denial. Terrible, I should have such. Not terrible, it's normal. Okay. But I don't have to entertain them. They came to the door, they knocked, I don't have to answer.
Why is the thought worse than the doing itself? How could it be worse?
So it mentions over here that in some ways they can be worth. Kashim Vera. Why? Because it's possible for a person to do something wrong, and it just happened. But my heart wasn't into it, and my mind wasn't in. I wasn't there. It just happened, I would be sitting with friends, and something came up, and they mentioned somebody, and I said, "Oh yeah, him." Oh no, I shouldn't have said that. Okay, but it slipped. Okay, whereas I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, this guy did this and he did that and he did that. I'm thinking about it. And I'm really taking it in. I'm allowing it to sink in. And even though I noticed right away and I stopped, I shouldn't be thinking that. But already it had that effect on me. So that's why the mind is like the key to everything. If the more control you have over your mind, more control you have over your life. That's how it all works. Remember one time, I'm sitting there. It's many years ago. I'm sitting there at the Shabbos table, and the kids are all bouncing off the walls and going crazy and throwing things at each other. And all of a sudden, so what do? I said, I'm going to sit here, stay calm down, think good thoughts. Calm my mind down, and I look around, and the kids have calmed down. I don't know how it worked, but it works. Okay, you calm down your mind, and it has an effect. Okay, so
It says 3 things.
where?
The last line.
3 things. I said 3 things: fleeting thoughts of sins, loss of focus in prayer. And the 3rd that he doesn't mention, it must be that it's not so relevant over here, is the dust of Lashon Hara.
Okay.
But he just says, etc. Okay, or ellipsis. Okay, but this is where the strong impression left in his brain by that experience of his tefillah comes to his aid, along with the awe of God, the fear of God, and love for Him that lies hidden in the right chamber. With that, he's able to override this path that craves its crazy and retain control. So because he had the time of tefillah in the morning, and he got the coals burning again, he got them warmed up, and that left also an impression in his mind as well. He got his head in the right place. So, this is like when you leave your garage at night, you have to remember to turn the headlights on. Today we don't have to do that because they're on automatic. Okay, but used to be you had to turn on the headlights. Okay, so going out into the world, the first thing you do is turn on the headlights. How do you do that? That's the time of tefillah in the morning. That's a time for turning on the headlights, or starting up getting the coals there. Now your mind, the rest of the day, has a trace, a memory, an impression of that experience in the morning. Wait, in the morning I decided that I believe in God. Why am I doing this? In the morning I decided that I love my fellow Jew. I can't do that. So there's something left there, and a little bit in the heart as well. So that helps the person overcome those cravings. So he can overcome those cravings. He can deny it the control and dominance in the city it needs to bring this craving and from potential to actual. So it can prevent it from investing itself into the limbs of the body. And even when it comes to the musings of the brain and these negative thoughts, it will not have the dominion it needs to bring the person to so willfully mistake. So if a person never properly davens, it becomes next to impossible. Then you can say, how can I control these thoughts? But if he invests every morning in a half hour, an hour, whatever it is, then he becomes capable of each time overriding it. The Beinoni is not going to voluntarily accept, chas v'shalom, any negative fleeting fantasy that rises spontaneously, as described earlier, from the heart to the brain. Rather, as soon as it enters, he immediately pushes it off with two hands. As soon as he recognizes this is not a fantasy he should be hosting, he turns his mind from it. And he's not going to willfully accept even to muse over it, all the more so he would not consider entertaining the possibility of actually carrying it out, chas v'shalom, or even to speak it out. Someone who willfully entertains such fantasies is considered a Rasha for that instance, okay, at that time. And he doesn't want to be a Rasha. But the Beinoni doesn't become a Rasha ever, even for a moment.
Can I ask you a question about that?
Yeah, but I'm just pointing out that you have this interesting thing in between. There's a person who's a Rasha at that moment. The Beinoni doesn't want to be a Rasha even for a moment, which implies there's something in between. The guy who's not really a Rasha, but he's not a Beinoni. Yeah, Mendel, you're going to say.
What if you're sitting in front of someone and they're the ones that are making you think this thing? They're speaking to you, having a conversation with someone, and they start talking about all these fantasies about who knows what, and you're just trying to be respectful, to listen, to be talking. To disturb them is against loving another Jew. I mean, not disturb them, like say I'm not interested in, and leave the conversation.
But you have to hold on. You're saying I want to show my love for this other Jew, so I'm going to listen to him sinning and participate in his sinning. You don't love another person by participating in his sin.
No, but you're sitting and talking to someone, and
the problem comes up. So for example, let's say there are people who call their mother every night. And the mother starts telling Lashon Hara about all the people and all the bad things. That's my mother. I have to. What do I do? Okay. You say, Mom, I don't want to hear this.
Yeah.
You have to. Your mother's going to be upset, but you have to. You have to find a nice diplomatic way of doing it, but I can't. I can't participate in this. Because you're not just hurting her by listening to her, hurting yourself and hurting the people that she's talking about. So by assisting her, you are hurting her. So you find some way. I know it gets difficult sometimes, but sometimes, like I was saying, there's the time that people think is the time for being quiet is the time to talk. Sometimes the time, if you're kind when you should be rude, you'll end up being rude when you should be kind. Okay, it's hard, but
Rabbi, my mother, as a
I
kindergarten
wasn't
teacher,
talking about your mother.
no. I just want to say her technique for she would distract the kids from fighting by changing the subject. She would talk about candy or talk about
Just change
or
it.
start
Talk about
singing a
something else.
song, or
Yeah,
so it's she would interrupt them and they would forget all about what they were doing.
yeah.
So
But people often
it's
feel that I don't want to be the preaching one telling you how you should behave and what you should do and so on. But you find there's always
no,
ways, like you said, you change the topic, talk
yeah,
about
she
something
would
else.
just
Yeah,
you just change the subject. And
yeah.
you might have to interrupt your mother, but
Mhm.
I'm switching back to the adult
Yeah.
issue. Yeah. So
It gets
I don't,
uncomfortable at times, but sometimes,
but this,
I got good advice once from an editor. We're having all sorts of problems in the company, and he says I think some difficult conversations must be had over here. Nobody wants to have difficult conversations. He says people have a choice in life. They can have a few difficult conversations which may last half an hour or so, or they can have difficult lives. Which one do you want? The difficult conversation or the difficult life?
Yep.
Yeah, so once in a while, you have to have a difficult conversation with the person. I don't want to talk to you about these things. That's all. I don't want to. And then it's over with, and now you can go on with life or difficult life. So it's your choice. People have to take on challenges. That's basically it. The next part really deserves an entire class, but let's just touch on it, and then you'll have what to think about. In a minute. As soon as some grudge or hatred arises, heaven forbid, from the heart to the brain, or some envy or anger, I left out a line. The same applies with interpersonal matters. In Adam l'chavere. All these things are implied with interpersonal. As soon as some grudge or hatred arises, heaven forbid, from the heart to the brain, or some envy or anger or resentment. See what they are? There's grudge, hatred, envy, anger, resentment. Okay, he's got us all down, right? Or anything of the sort. There's all sorts of things here. The Beni won't accept it filthy in his brain, any of it, right? None of that. So a grudge, in other words, the Torah says, "Lo tikom lo titor." You don't take vengeance, but you don't even hold a grudge, right? You lent the guy. How's it go? You came to the guy and said, "I need a hatchet. Can I borrow your hatchet?" He said, "I'm not lending you my hatchet." So revenge is when he comes and he says, "I need a hatchet." He says, "I'm not lending you. You didn't lend me. I'm not lending you." That's called revenge. That's not allowed. But also, what if you say, "Oh, you need a hatchet? Sure. I'm not like you. I'll lend you my hatchet."
That was in last week's part.
That's a grudge.
That was last week's part.
What?
That was one of the things in last week's part.
Yeah. Lo titor, right?
Yeah.
Kadoshim.
Yeah.
Kadoshim too. That's right.
Yeah.
Last week's parsha. So, and it's not because you said it. It's because you're holding a grudge. You have to completely let go of it. Okay. So, and then there's kina, jealousy. So the Torah said, one of the 10 Commandments, jealousy. He has this and I don't have it. How could that be? As kids do that, but the kids call it, it's not fair. Okay. Or anger is considered the worst of all of them. A kapeda, resentment. Kapeda means I resent that he did this. Something about him. So you can't have any of that. You come to a time of tefillah. At the time that you're davening, before davening, you say Hareini Makabal Alayim Mitzvah Say Shavavta L'Orecha Kamocha. The Arizal told us Talmidim, you have to accept to love every other Jew just like yourself. Why? Several reasons given. One reason is we don't daven alone. None of our prayers are just for me. We're asking, it's all of us. It's really what it is the entire Jewish community is davening through each of our mouths. And you listen to what the Jewish community is saying through your mouth. But it's all of us. So you're like, and the Bet HaMikdash was brought morning and afternoon, a carbon of sheep, one on the Mizbeach. And that was given to an offering from the entire Jewish people.
Right.
If there would be a blemish in that sheep, it could be brought. So now if a person is coming and bringing, this is my sheep on behalf of the entire Jewish people, but I don't like this guy, then that means that guy is missing from the sheep. That means there's a blemish on this sheep. We can't accept it.
I mean, you shouldn't daven.
You have to forgive everybody before you can daven. Not have
So what if you can't? You can't daven?
Before you daven, you can't daven. You're upset at somebody, you can't daven. At a time when a person's angry, shouldn't say Tehillim, shouldn't daven. So you have to put it out of your mind. So Benedict doesn't want to accept any of that willfully in his brain. On the contrary, his brain rules and governs over the spirit within his heart. So he does the exact opposite. He does the opposite. Because remember, he feels the anger, but he doesn't allow it to come from the heart to the brain. Yeah, so he's going to go to heaven, and he knows that this is the way I feel about these people, but I don't entertain those thoughts. I get this once in a while. People say, I can't forgive. I can't forgive. But I don't really feel it. I said, listen, just say, I forgive you. Just do that. A girl the other day told me she can't forgive God. Why not? She says, because there's a part of me that says that I'm not allowed to be angry with him. So I can't forgive. I said, stop being so complicated. Stand up and say, God, I forgive you. Okay, that's it. You don't have to master the instincts of your heart. But the rest of you can do. You can say, I forgive, and I'm not going to think bad thoughts about you. I'm not going to think angry thoughts about you because I said that, okay? And that's okay. But it's not completely sincere. Get your complete sincere. Just say it, okay? So you do exactly the opposite. So you're upset with this guy. What do? You treat him with kindness. Show him even greater closeness. Why are you being so nice to this guy? Because I hate him. So he gets better treatment. Puts up to the furthest extreme without losing his temper. He doesn't pay him back in kind. Quite the opposite. He makes amends to the guilty party by doing him favors. There's just so much to say on this. We're going to do, God willing, next week. As it's written in the Zohar, we need to learn from how Joseph treated his brothers. That's that one line. We got a lot to say on. Okay, Joseph and his brothers, but it really sums everything up when we get to it. So we'll talk about next week those interpersonal relationships, how we're supposed to deal with that. Okay, and next week, is that Lag BaOmer? Which day is Lag BaOmer?
I think
It's Tuesday.
It's Tuesday. Okay, so by Thursday we're past Lag BaOmer. Okay, everybody have a wonderful Pesach Sheni tomorrow. Tomorrow early afternoon, eat some matzah. Sometime after about 2 o'clock or so. We went when it's midday in Atlanta. It's like 2 o'clock. Something, but not later in the afternoon because you want to have an empty stomach when Shabbos comes in. So sometime around 3:30. Eat your matzah. Have a seder with matzah.
Thank you. Bye.
Right?
Thank you.
And see you. Have a wonderful Lag BaOmer, and see you next week.
So next week.